Welcome everyone to the SACNAS Undergraduate Research Day. My name is Katerina Oviedo, and I'm honored to serve the SACNAS community as the Student Programs Manager. To kick things off today, I want to give a special welcome to our first-time attendees to SACNAS. SACNAS is an inclusive organization dedicated to achieving true diversity in STEM, where the field reflects the demographics of our country's population. We have over 8,000 members and 133 student and professional chapters across the country. As the nation's largest multicultural and multidisciplinary STEM diversity organization, SACNAS creates a space where all members, partners, and staff feel they belong and can embrace and celebrate their intersectional identities. After today, I hope each of you will join us as an official member. I am so happy you all could join us today. Please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, share your name and the institution you're attending. Today, we will talk about how to take that next step in your academic career and start on your first undergraduate research. You will meet professionals and peers who will share their journey, how they navigated their first undergraduate research experience, and will tell you how to start on yours at your respective institution and beyond. Now, I would like to introduce SACNAS Associate Director of Mission Programs and Native Initiatives, Dr. Daryl Montero.
Oh, thank you, Katerina. De onde papa, Dr. Daryl Tapado Monto, akon, kote beba akon, SACNAS ya so de do. Hello, everyone. It is an honor to be here with you all today in this space. My name is Dr. Daryl Monto. I am Kiowa from Oklahoma, and I am currently serving as the Associate Director for Mission Programs and Native Initiatives with SACNAS. And I am very honored, again, to have been asked to to share this time and give the land acknowledgement. And again, we are so glad that you are with us today. So on behalf of SACNAS, we would like to acknowledge our Native American and Indigenous people and show respect and appreciation for the lands that belong to the Native nations who were the original inhabitants of this country. I am coming to you today from the homelands of the Kaw, Kickapoo, Osage, and Oceti-Sakowin in Lawrence, Kansas. SACNAS is based out of California, which is the homelands to over 200 tribal nations, bands, and rancherias of Native Americans and Indigenous people. We would like to take this time to honor the rich culture of the Indigenous people across the country, whose lands we live and work. We are in support of the land back efforts that tribal nations have begun advocating and working toward having stewardship and decision-making over their native lands. SACNAS is also committed to ensuring our Native American and Indigenous community are supported in their academic and professional journeys and are committed to our vision of achieving true diversity in STEM. Aho, thank you again for allowing me this time to share. I hope you enjoy the event and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Dr. Montero. So now let's take a look at what we have planned for you all today. This morning, we have prepared a session for you, everything you need to know about undergraduate research programs by Stephanie Ramos. She's joining us from Oregon State University. This session will go until 11 a.m. We will have a short break, 10 minutes break, and I all invite you to join to our next event, student presentations. It will go until 12 p.m. Please take a look at the agenda you have received in your email to join to that next event, student presentations, because it will be a different link on Zoom. Next, after the student presentations part 1, we have planned lunch, so you will have a little bit longer break, 30 minutes, and then we all invite you to join student presentations part 2. We will hear stories from the students who have presented at the SACNAS conferences and their experience, how they got into research and tips for you all. Again, it will be a different Zoom event, so make sure you check your agenda for that link, specific link. After that, we will hear from my colleague about SACNAS research presentation, travel scholarship application tips. We have next application period right around the corner. After that, we planned a short break for you, and then we will all get together for the networking event. This networking event will have a different link that you can find on your agenda. So I encourage you to keep that agenda close by and use those links. And at the end, we will wrap up with the raffle prizes for today. I strongly encourage you to stay until the end. We will be giving out 4 Amazon gift cards in a raffle. But if you cannot commit to follow us all day, feel free to jump out and join us later today. That will be totally fine. So with that said, I would like to invite you all to join Stephanie Ramos at her session, Everything You Need to Know About Undergraduate Research Program. Stephanie is the Associate Director of Undergraduate Research at Oregon State University and supports students to navigate their first undergraduate research experience. Before joining OSU, she was the academic coordinator for the Opening New Doors to Accelerating Success Student Center at the University of California, Santa Barbara. She completed her MS in inorganic chemistry at Oregon State University and her bachelor's in chemistry at Texas Tech University. Currently, she's pursuing her PhD in science education at OSU. Stephanie, the floor is yours.
All right, so I'm so excited to be here today. My name is Stephanie Ramos, she, her. I am, as Katarina said, the Associate Director of Undergraduate Research at Oregon State University. And I'm super honored to be a part of this new SACNAS Undergraduate Research Program Day, which is really, the goal is to inspire students to get them interested in research and kind of figuring out the steps to get there. And so I'm hearing from speakers and students today. I hope you all take advantage of this. And Judiana is also at Oregon State University, has plenty of experience in undergraduate research, and also here in the chat to answer questions, so please be active. So if you haven't already, please put your information in the chat. You're in school, your major, what institution you're at, if you have a research interest, if you have a question. The reason that we're doing this is so Judy can be monitoring the chat, and also if there's any questions that you have or needing direction to be able to find opportunities, you can have some of that live action right now. So I just want to introduce myself and kind of give a little bit about me so that you know my background, but also the deep roots that I have in undergraduate research. So I am a first-generation college graduate, the first in my family to finish high school and go on. I started off at a community college in West Texas, South Plains. Through this experience, I was able to do multiple internship and research experiences, specifically the Plains Bridges program while at community college, which helped me and introduced me to undergraduate research. So as a first-year student, I had no idea what undergraduate research was. I had never been exposed or knew that that was even an opportunity. And so it really was pivotal and life-changing. And through that program, I actually was able to fly for the first time because I went to a conference, but also attending SACNAS as a student and presenting the research that I did. Really, as a life member of SACNAS, just being able to be here today is just, again, such an honor. My background is in chemistry. I currently, again, reside in Corvallis, Oregon. So I have a bachelor's and master's. I've worked in the California system here at Oregon State in a couple of different roles, and currently on trajectory for a PhD in science education. And so if you're wondering, like, what do you know about undergraduate research and internships, have a lot of information and just super excited to share some of that with you. And so as we begin, just kind of giving some context on what undergraduate research is. Sometimes students might be overwhelmed or hear it and wonder, what is that and should I do it? So most professors on campus are required to conduct original research as part of their appointments, and they need students such as yourselves to help them reach their research goals. And this happens hopefully outside of the classroom. There are opportunities to do research inside the classroom, so I want to kind of separate that. This is something that you do in addition to your coursework. And then there is a common misconception about who actually can do undergraduate research, and that it's only honor students or upper division students. And this is false. So no matter what year you're in, a limited experience, if you don't have any, if you're just getting started, anyone can do research. And so just wanting to put that out there for you to know that if this is something that you're interested in, you're in the right place to learn and take steps toward that. The second thing is the students come in and they're like, it's too late, Stephanie, it's too late to get involved in undergraduate research. Just so you are aware, there are different time lengths in which you can be involved in undergraduate research. You can be involved for a term or a quarter or several terms. You can do this in the summer if you're in the honors college or in a program that has you to do a thesis, you can do it through there. And then there are also organized programs which are a set or fixed time for you to do research. So many different ways. So we'll talk about those in case you were wondering. I always tell students to, as you're thinking about undergraduate research, there are so many benefits, more than I can list here, but kind of to give you an idea that really undergraduate research is a tool that you take with you, that you use to help you, hopefully beyond graduation, whether that be to professional school or graduate school, or to help you get a job and whatever that may be. So making connections is super important. If you're looking to go to those graduate schools, as I was talking about, you might need letters of rec. Research professors usually can help write some of those. You can get paid to do this. You can get course credit. And so get, a grade on your transcript, learning to present your work. It helps students build confidence. And just to kind of pause and say, not everyone likes undergraduate research, but you get to learn what you like and don't like. And so just by participating, it's not something that you have to stay committed to forever, and just being open to that and trying and learning. But afterwards, you can add this to your resume, and hopefully if you decide to continue, you can become a specialist in any field or area. And so we kind of take an approach of where do you fall? Where are you as a student, which is why I asked that question in the beginning. Tell us who you are, what you are interested in, and if you're just curious, right? So some students are like, I want to start right now. So we're going to talk about how we get started, but also know that if you're like, it's the end of the term, I'm overwhelmed, I want to do this next year, we're going to talk about a couple of options. And so there is also two ways, right? One is you can get involved on your own, or you can get involved through a program. So if you're going to do this on your own, which is totally possible, I just put together a couple of steps and considerations for students to kind of go through. And I will say that this is best done with someone. So usually most universities or institutions have someone in an undergraduate research office space that can help mentor. You can also always reach out and ask questions. My email will be dropped into the chat towards the end. But kind of the steps: research on the research, drafting an email, which can be a limiting factor for some students if they've never drafted an email or know what to include. There's also the meeting. So let's say your email goes through, you get a meeting, how to engage in that meeting. And then kind of the big tip I have for all students always is the importance of communication and how we communicate. So as we go and look at researching on the research, this is really about you to be reflective. So that's why I asked, what are you interested in? Where do you see yourself after graduation? And so researching the research to me means that you need to figure out, who those faculty, professors, or research areas are that you would like to work with or to work in. And so just a couple of ideas for you to consider as you are searching for these opportunities if you haven't started already. So, it could be a professor that you had a course with. It could be someone in your college. It can be someone outside of your college. So I always like to let students know, if you're interested in animals, there are animals in agriculture, there are animals in aquatic life, there might be animals in vet med, or just different areas working on similar or areas of research. So just know that if you have an interest, it doesn't have to necessarily be in your college. Also, universities have faculty directories. So this is where you can go through and search for faculties by name, by area of expertise, see their websites. And then kind of further into that, each college or department might have a homepage that lists their researchers and what they're working on. And if all else fails, Google your university or college and, cancer or bunnies or, whatever it is that might be interesting to you. And then I added the last bullet point in this morning, which are seminars. And so you might be on an email list from your department that sends out emails about, there's this seminar speaker coming. You're like, I have no idea what a seminar is. That just means a faculty mentor or member is going to talk about the work that they do. And so it's a really good place to A, network, and B, just learn about a field and see how presentations are put together. And so I kind of put an emphasis on drafting the email, and in a longer version of this presentation, I would give examples of, what a poor email draft looks like versus a strong email looks like. And so what I will just say is this is a draft, a template. Judy will drop an email etiquette link in the chat that has information about how to craft an email, but really some things that I see students do when they send this is, one, they send an email to 15 professors and they're like, I don't know why I didn't get a response back from any. It's probably because those were copy and pasted. You didn't do the homework. You made a generic email. Really make these as specific as possible as you can to each research mentor. And I would suggest, email one professor at a time and give them a chance to respond. Also, students will forget to ask a question, so requesting a meeting, but then you don't put times or even a Zoom link, right? Like, here's some times that I'm available, here's also a Zoom link, happy to connect. Some students will put that on Saturday and Sunday at 10 p.m. and it's like, folks don't work during those hours, so try to keep it during the business hours. And recognizing that student schedules are busy, provide context or options if you can't make those times. I work 2 jobs, I commute, could we meet during this time? That context is helpful instead of just saying, can you meet me on Sunday at 10? Because, that's the only time I have free. But there's also information on our website about the follow-up aspect of this. So sometimes students don't hear back from a professor in their first email. And what I will say is that, usually give faculty a week, and then it's okay to send a follow-up. And we have some tips on that as well as, trying to get that information to be as clear as possible. So I just like to leave this here as, the email is your introduction, can be your first introduction. And so it's a really critical step. And I've seen students who just send emails to multiple professors and they're like, I don't know why I'm not, again, hearing back. Just remember, this is can be one of the make it or break it deals for students. So let's say you've crafted a fantastic email, you've sent it off, you've got a response back. Yes, I would love to meet you. I'm interested in everything that you said. I'm actually looking for students. We also have on our website, we put together a lot of information for students, like a student toolkit about how to engage in those meetings. And so I just kind of put some tips in here that are things that I've seen students, again, go into a meeting and then they're like, well, nothing happened after that meeting. So trying to help students prepare, what can you do to make sure that you have the next step set up? And so, dressing presentably, I say that not that you have to wear a suit and a tie, but just be mindful if you have a graphic logo that could be either political or not well received, or, and that may be a sign for that faculty or might be a sign for you. So just know that go as you are, be yourself, but also know that there are some things that could potentially lead faculty to say, oh, I don't really want to work with that student, or they didn't show up. Prepared with a notebook, with a pencil to take notes. Like, students think they can remember everything. It just shows like, oh, if you tell me something, I'll remember it. And also, again, part of that preparation, reading their publications. And if you don't know how to find a publication or where their work is, university librarians are your best friend. And if you don't know who yours is, please do locate them. Also review their website if they have one. This will tell you where they've been, what work they've done, anything that they might have upcoming. Also eliminate distractions. Believe it or not, students will go in texting into an office and it's like, you know, you're there to meet with them. Make sure your phone is off and away. And then, you know, if the meeting goes well, always ask about kind of next steps. And if you can maybe listen into one of their group meetings, if they have group meetings, and just any advice or tips, right? But you always want to leave knowing what your next steps are. You'll contact me, I'll contact you, you know, you asked me to do this, and kind of restating those so that there is no confusion. But we also have on our website that follow-up email is also critical, right? So following up and saying, this is what we talked about. You said you would give me this. I said I would give you this. You said we would meet here, you know, week 10. So that you have a record. And if anything comes up, it's like, you've done your part. So this is kind of, again, a general gloss over of you've done the research on the research, you've sent your email, your well-crafted email, you finally met with a professor, and then students get into research groups. And I will say every single student that is in this webinar today, if you are not already doing research, you have the potential to do research just by the fact that you've shown up. What happens with students that I've seen, like 80% of the time between faculty and students as the issues arise, come from and stem from communication. And so always communicate via email, sending up follow-ups, thanking them, you know, doing what you say you're going to do. If you do agree to go to a group meeting, you can also reach out to team members and communicate with them and say, you know, what are you working on? What is your experience? So you can connect with the faculty, but connect with those that might be working closer with them and get another perspective if this might be a good fit for you. You know, also sharing, you know, I'm not available Tuesdays and Thursdays because I have to be, you know, in a lab or I have another job, but I can be there Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 9 to noon. You know, well, are you there? Does that work? And then again, part of this communication piece is really learning how to advocate for yourself. If you have questions, ask them. If you don't have questions, you know, we have a list of questions online, like what you should ask faculty. So we've done a lot of prep work in terms of like, we have a list that says, you know, here are some questions to ask during your meeting, things that you might not know or might be aware of. So having those, again, shows that you've done some homework, but also sets you up to be able to advocate for yourself. And then if there's something that you're really interested in wanting to do, ask about it. So some students say, you know, I want to be a published author. I want to go to grad school. Can you make that happen? You know, asking about those things that you want and need early on are only going to help clarify and set up those expectations. On our website as well, which we have is a mentor compact. So we have a list of things that students and faculty can work through together, a list of questions to be able to make sure you have all the information you need. So I highly recommend students to look at that as well as part of that preparation. You know, if you've not gotten started before in research, again, what do you need to be ready to ask? And so as we think about, you know, this is if you're wanting to start right now. So if we're heading into summer, their faculty might be on their 9-month appointments, might not be responding to emails, or they might be working and might need help right now. I'm not sure, right? That's part of the inquiry process and emailing. But there are ways to get started next year. And so I did mention organized programs. Just so you are aware, there are over 700 organized undergraduate research programs across the US. This is an NSF REU Research Experiences for Undergrads website. It has all of the STEM fields and a list by major of different universities that have programs to support students. If you look at this website and you notice that there's one at UCLA that you would love to be a part of, for instance, the deadline has passed. Just make a mental note that those deadlines rarely change drastically. So if it was due December 15th, it might be due December 15th of next year. If it was due February 1st, it might be due by February 1st of next year. Looking at what you might need. Do you need a letter? Do you need research experience? Do you need, I don't know what it is that they might ask for, but reviewing their requirements and making sure that you're doing what you can to prepare for that beforehand. So just know that you might look at this list and find one at your institution that you might be interested in, or you might find one at another institution. So just know that these are not all of the research programs. Institutions themselves have research programs. OSU, for instance, has our office and we host our own programs. So there's many programs that, are not on this list, but really trying to find those can be tricky sometimes. And so asking questions kind of will help get you there. And then I was asked about other opportunities. I know that there are limited opportunities for international and DACA recipient students, but I did we did a search online. So there, again, some deadlines have passed, not all, but if deadlines have passed, just keep that in mind for an opportunity next year. And just know for your own kind of, again, advocating for yourself, you do not need to disclose your status to anyone. If you go through a hiring process and you have your documents, you don't need to let anybody know, only HR in which you work with, right? So if you're afraid of telling your research mentor that you're, international or that you're a DACA recipient, you don't necessarily have to share that. So getting hired to do research, that should in no way hinder you. Sometimes, again, if you have the ability to volunteer or take course credit, you can totally do that and still get involved. I know that getting paid for research is super important. It's important for me. It's important for me to also advocate for students to get paid. And so just know that if this is something that you're interested in, you have further questions, I'm happy to connect one-on-one and do a more deep dive search of ways in which to get you connected. And so, as we have talked about, why you should do research, I still think about students, if you're planning on doing this, once you get involved in undergraduate research, being able to present your work at the university or a national convention, like at the SACNAS NDI STEM, I think that's the new name, conference. So building skills, putting it on your resume, networking with other scholars in your area or outside of your area. And again, if you decide that graduate school or research is a path that you want to pursue, then you can definitely use your research experience to do that. And then I just kind of wanted to also give a shout out to the team that I work with, and Judy is not on here. Give me just a second. But these are the amazing group of students and graduate students that I work with at OSU. We're on social media at URSA OSU on all platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Also happy to connect with students via LinkedIn, but that is not the LinkedIn account. But just so you all know, this work that I do is not possible without students, and these students have done undergraduate research, are also happy to answer questions. So if you, again, need any support, just know that there are plenty of people who are willing and excited to help and answer those questions. And sometimes it's nice to also get that student experience and student perspective, because then you might be asking different questions that's, you might not feel comfortable asking a staff or faculty. So just know that I highly encourage you to connect with your peers as well. And with that, I have a list of questions. I'm going to stop sharing that I normally try to answer, but I wanted to go to the chat and also see if there were questions that you as students had, and really trying to give this time to you. You came here for a reason. And so my hope is that you leave with something, whether that be the link for a website or just knowing that you have a starting place. Maybe you've started drafting an email, maybe you want someone to review it, but really, this space is for you. And so the goal here, and I think the goal of today is if we can get, even one or all of you into research experience, we're going to continue to change STEM. We're going to continue to show up. It is, as I can only say, it's life-changing. So I just want you all to also have that experience. And just to, again, highlight, if you don't like research or don't love it, that is also okay. But give it a try, see how it goes. And, you know, the one thing that could happen is that you love it. And so I'm in the chat now. Oh yeah, so there was a question about how do you ask for a letter of recommendation. We actually have a web page dedicated to helping students ask for letters of rec. So if you're applying to multiple programs, I always encourage students to get organized, so you can, you know, ask one person for multiple letters. Often what happens is students will not feel comfortable doing that, but if you get yourself organized and you ask all at once, or they have a letter for you already, it just makes it easier to modify that letter. So it's actually not a burden to ask for multiple letters, but it is a burden when you don't organize and say, these are all the letters I need, right? So just so students are aware, I think there's also that misconception. Yeah, research experience. So my partner works at HP, and research at a university is just as good as like an internship experience. So again, what I said in the beginning is that you are getting a set of skills, and you can also get skills by working at your local grocery store. You can get skills by working, you know, at a company, or doing something in the summer that is not research related. Those skills will help you. So I don't want students to feel like if I get one versus the other. I really think it's what you make of that experience, you know, how you show up for it. And so I don't think there's a ranked of this counts less or more, because you're hopefully getting the skills that you need, those soft skills, communication, presenting, those kinds of things. Yeah, thanks for that, Judy. Let's see, I didn't see other stuff. Yeah, and Judy just put in the chat how to leave a research group. So maybe you're doing research and you're like, this is no longer for me. You can leave a research group gracefully and still get a good letter of rec. So making sure you're taking steps. Again, and these things that you do in undergraduate research hopefully will transfer to your experience when you get a job. And so if you can practice that as an undergrad, all the better, so that you're prepared when you are working out in the real world, where you don't want to just leave projects open, or you don't want to disappear. I know oftentimes students stop responding to emails for various reasons. And then you know, at that point, there's nothing I can do about the relationship. And I'm not saying you have to give your life story or what you're experiencing to your research mentor, but I think something as simple as, thank you for reaching out. I have a lot going on right now. And I appreciate the opportunity you've given me. You know, I have to reprioritize, you know, shift focus. And I hope to be in touch in the future when things, you know, if things change. But instead of, you know, ghosting faculty, especially if they've given you a commitment in time. So there's unique ways to word and craft emails and communicate that effectively that will, again, hopefully help you. Are there resources we can access if you're doing independent research? So Monica, it seems like if you're doing independent research, so I guess this means research with no faculty, you're just doing it on your own. Usually, and if I understand the question correctly, please correct me if I'm wrong or I'm not getting it all the way. But usually you need a faculty mentor in order to access the lab equipment and those reagents. They're not just going to let you go into their lab and do your own independent work. That is why working with the faculty, you can share your idea. Here's the idea of the project I have. This is the independent work I'd like to do. Will your like, does this align with your research? So faculty usually won't pay for that or contribute to that if it doesn't align with the work that they do. I hope that answers your question. Yeah, but it's so cool. If you are doing research on your own, I actually just met a student at OSU who is collecting samples on the coast of Oregon and Washington and California. They have over 200 samples and are like planning to build a database. They've done this on their own. They bought their own kind of microscope and setup. And I think that that, to me, I had never thought of as doing, and so it can totally be done. Does that help you get a letter of rec though? Probably not. So, again, I would encourage you, if you have that inquisitive mind and you're already doing the scientific method, try to find a faculty mentor to help, and that can guide you and ask you questions and help you present. I think that that's the piece that, again, is invaluable. Oh, this is a really good question. Jorge, how can one stand out and improve their chances? Yeah, so it depends, right? So I'm going to give a couple of examples. So one is, I just led our campus-wide research symposium. We had over 200 presenters, about 120 in person doing posters, and 60 online doing pre-recorded talks. And we sent out messaging encouraging students to show up, as professional as possible, to be able to network and connect with those in their college or other students. And that can make you stand out, like how you present yourself, how you show up, and I know that there's a lot of bias that follows that, so I will acknowledge that. But if you have a whole bunch of students who are all the same, who are all amazing, then certain things are going to start to stand out. So one could be in your resume. So for instance, if your resume has a typo, that could be the difference between setting you apart and not. So if we're looking technical at what you present, if we're looking at how you present yourself. Again, your email can be super unique. So instead of just saying, I read your paper, everybody can read their paper, it's all available online. Maybe you went to their seminar. Maybe you saw them present somewhere else, if they presented at another place. That sets you apart because it shows your initiative, your interest. So how do you do that without being like the rest of the students? Because again, you're right, a whole bunch of students in here could send an email to the same exact professor. You have to ask yourself, what would set me apart? And so one, I don't always encourage this, but let's say you're taking a class with a professor who's the professor you would love to work with. After class, one thing you could do is say, can I walk you to your next meeting? It might be a 2-minute walk, it might be a 3-minute walk, but you can give your elevator pitch at that point to say, this is who I am, I'm interested in this, I would like to talk more about it, but I know you're a busy person and I just, even this amount of time, any advice you have on this, I would greatly appreciate it, right? So thinking of unique ways to do that. The other thing is that you don't know who knows who. And so it's also, the academic world is really small. So if you see that faculty connecting with someone and you know them, you could use that as a way of introducing that networking. Side note, I actually got my first job at Santa Barbara City College through a SACNAS connection. And it wasn't through a SACNAS person I knew, it was literally like, who in SACNAS is in Santa Barbara and can they connect me? And they did. And it was, again, life-changing. So using your network, looking on this online SACNAS dashboard, I know they have connections now, being able to kind of make those and see, who can help do that introduction. No formal. Yeah, so hopefully that answers your question. And then to the question from another student. So what are your thoughts on reaching out to faculty when there is no formal research opportunity being offered? So I say go for it. Again, every student is unique. So for me to give you blanket advice and say, this is going to work for you, like that every situation is unique, every student is unique, every faculty mentor is unique, every research experience, every university culture, it's all unique. And so what I would say is, when you reach out, you can say, I can volunteer my time if you're able to. You can say, I'm interested in course credit. You have to pay for that, or there might be 0 credit options, or there might be other types of options. But for you to ask that question, if you're interested in their work, provide them options. I'm interested in getting involved. Here are some things or considerations. Or again, I can volunteer my time on Saturdays and Sundays, all day. Will that work for you? So again, A, reach out, but B, know what it is that you can and can't do, and be ready to state that and communicate that, right? And so sometimes I meet with students and they're like, Stephanie, I don't need to get paid to do research. And I'm like, did you tell the faculty that? And they're like, no. And I'm like, that's, maybe that could help. It doesn't guarantee, there's no guarantee, but it does provide the faculty with options. If you provide your schedule, maybe the faculty's like, I actually can use some support during that time, right? I don't know. I think that's why it's worth the initial contact, and it's worth a good follow-up email to provide further context on who you are and why you're interested in. And then the other thing is asking, if you don't have any research opportunities, do you recommend anyone that might be looking for a student, right? So asking a good follow-up question. Students will come to me, I'm like, I don't know the answer, but let me find someone who does know that answer. Just another consideration to have. There's some really good questions, y'all. Please keep them coming in. If there's something that hasn't been clear, or even sharing where you're at, or if you've tried to get connected with research, maybe trying to figure out what we can do to help that. I guess my question for you all is after hearing this, do you feel that you have at least the tools or the information to be able to move forward and ask for or to participate in research? Yay. Yeah, again, there's a lot of information. And so I err on the side of presenting to you for, an hour and really trying to get your questions answered. Yeah, so good. I'm glad. I'm trying to think. So if you're looking, what's the average pay? Oh, that's a really good question. Okay, so let's talk about pay, because I like this question. So I did mention earlier, and I don't encourage, I'm not telling you to go and work for free. That is not my message, because you can get paid to do undergraduate research. Usually pay can vary, and it's a huge spectrum, because if you're getting paid via payroll and you apply to a position to do undergraduate research. Oh, that's a really good point. Judy, can you pull the Oregon State job search for students to see that there's different ways to search for jobs? Sometimes research faculty actually post positions through payroll, and students don't even know to look. So there might be research opportunities at your institution right now that are paying. They might be set up for someone already, or they might actually be looking for students. So just know that that is one option. Usually, if you get hired through payroll, it's minimum wage. So whatever that may be in your state. In Oregon, minimum wage goes to $13.50 as of July 1. And in our area, in Portland area, it's a little bit higher to increase cost of living. So that really does vary. If you get paid through a particular program, they might pay a flat stipend. They might say, for instance, we're going to pay you for 100 hours and we're going to give you $1,000. And that's a scholarship / stipend. And so if you do the math, you're like, I'm getting paid $10 an hour, which is below minimum wage. But usually those are what those programs can pay. So, you have to determine whether that's good bang for your buck if you're able to do that. I always tell students, you're going to get something out of it. So if you can afford to do it, do it. And know that sometimes faculty will want students to work for them without pay. And I know that might seem a little crazy, but imagine as a faculty getting 50 students emailing them and then selecting students to see which students might be serious about their work. They might put that as a limiting factor to see who's really interested. So just know that because faculty have a lot of interest, because students really want to work with them, that there might be a little bit more hoop/hurdle, but this varies again by faculty, by institution. So just know that what your friend goes through might not be what you experience. And so I just want to kind of highlight that. Let's see. Yeah, so an app to answer the second part of that question is, do you get paid after that research is done? So this is where that communication and kind of negotiation comes in, because you can get paid for research after those programs end, but you usually need a discussion. So sometimes faculty will say, I don't have money to pay you after. And you're like, well, then I can't work for you. Or you can say, you know, I really am here for this experience. And, you know, are there any grants or scholarships we can apply for? And that usually is a way to get money. And faculty are usually pretty savvy about wanting to do that, especially if you are committed in working. Yeah, so yeah, people putting contact. Yeah, so as far as like opportunities abroad, so there's multiple ways to approach this. So I'm going to start with study abroad. If you are planning to study abroad, there, depending on the institution, and this really goes hand in hand in working with a faculty mentor already, because sometimes faculty mentors have collaborators in other countries. And so asking that question to the person you're working with, like, do you know anybody in Spain that I could do research with? Because I'm going to study abroad and I would love to continue the work that I'm doing. You know, so there are opportunities abroad, and I've found that students mostly get those through the connections with the faculty that they currently work with. If you just went through study abroad and tried to find faculty, they may or may not have an opportunity, but you know, it never hurts to ask. I haven't seen many students do that other than through study abroad, and I'm not familiar of any international programs. To be honest, but it's a good question that I'm going to take back and see if we can find some. I don't know if anybody has any information on that. Oh, hold on. I had a set of questions. Give me just a second. I know a question that I normally get from students that y'all haven't asked yet is, can I use my work study? If you have federal work study, if you do have work study, I encourage you to apply for jobs through your university. That is a great deal for those faculty that are hiring you. It's also good for you to disclose that if you are work study eligible. Just say, I have work study, you have a position that you could hire, because it costs faculty less money when a student comes in with work study. It offsets that cost. So definitely do share that. Oh, that's a great question. So a question came in about, yeah, there's a lot of companies right now that will pay for you to go to graduate school. Yes. So for instance, I work full-time at Oregon State and I study part-time. So I get a tuition remission, meaning that my university tuition is covered up to a certain percentage. And so it's a really good deal. So you can, at universities and other companies, get paid or get some of that paid, not all of it all the time, but sometimes you can. But I would say, like, getting hired right away, I think just having research experience in general, again, can help you get hired. But again, I've seen students get hired without having done research. So I wouldn't, again, I don't want to emphasize that if you don't do research that you won't get a job after, if that makes any sense. And then question I get is, do you need research experience for graduate school? No, you can go to graduate school. I actually had a friend who, well, they did research for like a term, but they got a degree in psychology and then they ended up getting a PhD in chemistry. And so you can make a switch And you don't necessarily need experience, but you do need desire and drive to do that. And then I also get the question from students like, what do professors look for in a student? And one thing that I always hear from faculty is someone that communicates, someone that shows up, someone that seems interested in what they're doing. You know, because I think half of the battle is just showing up and asking questions. I will say that when students do research, there is a tendency to, you know, do what you're told and then just stop and be like, well, I did what they told me. It's always impressive to me when a student comes up to me and says, I'm done. What do you have next? What else can I help with? You know, if a faculty mentor hires you and you're washing dishes and you wash all the dishes, you're like, what can I do next? And you keep asking them, what can I do next? Like, I've done this, I've done it well. Like, I want to get involved at another level, right? I think that again shows like you're interested. And every time I've heard a student say, like, how can I help you? I'm like, whoa, yes, I need your help. So, you know, asking how can you help or what can you assist in? Those questions, again, become super important when you are working with researchers or working with just faculty in general. And then I will say, the other thing that I see students kind of struggle with is managing everything that they have to do with research, with personal life, with family, with relationships. You know, if you haven't already built good time management skills, I would suggest doing that before you get into undergraduate research because it is a commitment and you want to do something, you want to do it well. And so that is also something I do. I work with students on is like, how are you managing your time? How are you tracking that? And do you know where you need to be in an efficient manner, right? That can be through a planner, through a Google Calendar. But I always kind of give that advice to students too. If you are not using that yet, it is the way of the professional world. And so you can start adjusting now by doing that. Any other questions? We have about 6 minutes, but I do need to make sure that we get some announcements to you all. But I just want to make sure that there's no lingering questions, thoughts, concerns. Happy to clarify or field anything else that you might be needing during this time. Well, I don't see anything coming in. I did see some positive feedback that you feel at least empowered to know where to start if you didn't know before, and asking some really amazing questions that I did not have on my list that I will make sure to incorporate. I know there was one question I didn't answer. And so, yes, please do to follow up and I can do that. Yeah, again, there's not certain types of research. I'm not sure what this question means, but in terms of research is research. Again, going back to what skills are you going to get that are going to help you in the next thing. Yeah, if you put that you did research through your university, if you put that you did research through one of those 700 summer programs, again, hopefully there were some outcomes there that you got to present, that you were able to network. So yeah, there is no wrong way to get involved. Yay, awesome. Oh, where are good places to find a mentor? So that again, Anton, the question that you asked is very specific and unique. I'm not sure what institution you're at. I'm not sure what your major is. You might have put that in the chat, but I haven't read it all. I feel like that kind of information would be best on a one-on-one, trying to get you situated to be able to find a mentor. I will say that one thing that I will tell students is that, and I'll leave this as my final message before we transition in, you are capable of so much. And again, just by showing up, I believe that you can do whatever it is that you set out to do. Sometimes students will get stuck in, I want to do cancer research. And if they're not doing cancer research, as an example, then they don't want to do research at all. And I will continuously over and over again say, find you a mentor that's going to work with you, that's going to support you, that's going to, help you get to that next step. So it might not be with cancer, maybe it's working with guinea pigs, maybe it's doing something completely different. But know that, again, it's the kind of job, it's kind of the stepping stone. It's not the end all. You don't have to do that forever. But if you don't have a mentor who is supportive, then doing that experience might not be the best experience for you. And again, if you do try research and it isn't a good experience, trying with a different mentor might also be helpful. So I don't want students to just try it and give up. Know that working with different folks can give you a different experience, which is why I encourage you to get involved, to take opportunities, and just to see where they take you. But just again, thank you all so much for joining and being here this entire hour. My information has been put into the chat. Judy is also in the chat, also just an amazing resource, phenomenal, information guru. So I'm going to hand it over to Katerina to give announcements and look forward to connecting with you all soon.
Thank you so much, Stephanie and Judy in the chat for this valuable presentation, for this valuable resources to our students and our attendees for the great questions in the chat. What a great discussion. Before we jump into our next event, I love that question that came up in the chat, how to find a mentor, what are the good places? Email me after this event. My email, I am going to drop in the chat. It's my first name, Katerina@sacnas.org. We at SACNAS have a mentoring program where we match students with the professionals, and you receive that one-on-one mentoring. And one of the criteria is research. So email me if you are interested in participating in this program. Our next event that will start at 11:10 a.m. Pacific time is the first round of student presentations. You will be able to listen to the students who are already doing their research. They have presented their research at the national conference and learned from their experience. You will also be able to ask any questions you might have to our students. So join us at 11:10. Emily has dropped the link to the Zoom in the chat. You will need to, if you don't see the link, grab the agenda for today, and there is a Zoom link right next to it. So it's going to be a different event. I will see you all in 10 minutes. Again, thank you so much, Stephanie, Judy, and to all our attendees. We will see you in 10 minutes. Bye, everyone.